Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon, she, her pronouns. I'm the Financial Capacity and Training Manager here at Freefrom, and I want to introduce my colleague, M. Jackson.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here, especially with all of y'all from all over. My name is M. Jackson. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm the Director of Peer Engagement and Support at Freefrom.
Okay, so do you want to get us started and then we'll kind of go into it?
Yes, sounds good. So if we can go ahead and transition to the next slide, Sharon, please. All right. So we wanted to start off with giving you all an agenda so you know what to expect throughout the webinar. So we're going to start with a grounding exercise, then we'll have a reflection exercise. We'll then go into an introduction to Freefrom. Of course, many of you may be aware of who we are, but we always like to give an overview of our work. We'll also have an introduction to economic abuse, discuss the effects and costs of economic abuse, talk about protecting your money from harm, and then we will go into healing from economic harm and end with a debrief as well as questions. But if you all have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to go ahead and enter that into the chat and we will answer those. Next slide, please. Okay. So I would like to invite those who are comfortable with accepting the invitation to participate in a grounding exercise. If you would accept that invitation, I ask that you think about what calms your body and mind. Maybe it is taking a few deep breaths, closing your eyes, doing a quick stretch, doodling, or maybe it's something else. Whatever it is that calms your body and mind, take a few moments to do that now. And as you're doing that, sit comfortably or choose a body position that feels good to you. I also ask that you check in with yourself. How are you feeling? What are you bringing with you and what are you leaving behind? And if I could have you all come back, and if your eyes were closed, if you could open them. And I want to thank you for accepting that invitation to really ground yourself. We want to make sure that you are in the space that you feel you need to be in to be able to receive information and participate if you would like. So thank you. All right, next slide, please, Sharon. So we're talking about money and protecting your money. So we want to start with the question about money. How have you used money today? If you could answer that question in the chat. How have you used money today? All right, I see some responses coming in. Gas and coffee, consume food, a book, online shopping, coffee and food. Okay. Wow, okay. $600 car repair bill. Those can get very pricey. Electricity and gas, hotel reservations, putting money in your piggy bank. Okay. Oh, you bought some parakeets. Congratulations. Donuts. Ordering supplies. Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank y'all so much for sharing that. Sharon, can you go ahead and advance to the next slide? So starting with our approach, we at Free From envision a world where survivors have sustaining income, savings, and credit with which to build wealth and the resources to support individual, intergenerational, as well as community healing. To that end, we take a holistic approach that uses technology, peer-to-peer networks, training programs for gender-based violence agencies, policy advocacy, social enterprise models, as well as cross-sector solutions. And what we really aim to do with our approach is to create an ecosystem of support for survivors that truly works on behalf of all survivors. So keeping in mind the approach that I just went through for you all, I want to also talk to you all about our values that we hold at Free From. Next slide, please. So our values are that gender-based violence is an economic issue with economic causes and economic consequences. GBV is not a women's issue, as GBV disproportionately affects trans and non-binary people. Experiences of LGBTQ and BIPOC survivors are centered and inform our work and workforce. Survivors are experts by experience and are trusted at all costs. Anyone can be a harm doer. Transformative justice supports survivors, harm doers, and communities in their healing. Yes, two spirits as well. I see that coming in the chat. Defunding the police and investing in non-carceral responses is crucial to creating long-term security for survivors and their families and communities. Living wage work and survivor-centered workplaces are essential to our movement's progress. Service providers are survivors. Economic justice is healing justice, and sex work is work. So those are the values that really center and inform our work. And I appreciate the attendee that also added in folks who are two-spirited as well. So we wanted to define economic abuse because that's something that we often talk about in our work, and wanted to make sure we all are on the same page of what that definition is when we refer to economic abuse. So economic abuse occurs when a harm doer controls a person's access to, use of, or ability to acquire or access financial resources. And I don't know about you all, but for me, it helps to not only have a definition, but to also have examples of that definition so I can really take hold of what that truly means. So economic abuse in relationships can take on many forms, and it includes, but it's not limited to, preventing a person from obtaining or maintaining employment, taking a person's paycheck and or putting them on an allowance, having their spending heavily monitored, credit cards that are taken out in a person's name, and then saddling them with the debt, many times without their knowledge at all, damaging the person's credit, and withholding necessary personal identification and or financial documents. So even though this says relationships, economic abuse, because many times I say it that way because many times when I hear the word relationships, I may think of a romantic relationship. And when we connect that to domestic violence or gender-based violence. However, we know that economic abuse can take place in any type of interaction that you have with another human. And so it's important to keep that in mind when we're thinking through all of this, that it applies to survivors, regardless if it's a gender-based violence situation that they're in, or it's a situation that they're in with anyone else as well. Next slide, please. So I'd like to ask you all, what does safety look, feel, or sound like to you? When you think about the word safety, what does that look, feel, or sound like? Free of fear, respecting boundaries, freedom to choose, peace, free to be authentic or to be your authentic self without fear, autonomy, and self-determination. Okay, y'all, I'm grateful that y'all are entering in the chat. I'm trying to read as fast as I can, so apologies if I don't read yours out loud. Freedom in your life. So a lot of freedom I'm hearing. When you can do what you want and need without fear. Okay, so freedom without fear. not having to ask to do anything, community holding each other accountable, moving freely by yourself, a space to thrive, feeling confident in yourself, and feeling capable of looking after yourself. Excellent, excellent. Being true to yourself. Independence of decisions. Excellent. Thank you all so much for participating in that. Being able to trust yourself. All right. Sharon, if we could go ahead and go to the next slide. So we have a poll that we would like for you all to participate in as well, if you're comfortable. Have you ever felt like you didn't have control over your money? So that could be interpersonal, at a workplace, with an institution of government. Maybe your wages were garnished. Maybe your hours were cut or your benefits were cut, or you had a spouse that claimed your children as dependents and they weren't supposed to. All right, so we have 82% yes, 18% no. Oh, okay. So just even seeing that poll response to see how many folks have felt in some type of way that their money has been controlled is astonishing. To see that 82% of folks felt that way. So thinking even further through that, whenever I know I hear statistics, it helps to paint the picture of what folks are trying to discuss. And so I want to go over some statistics that are related to the economic harm that many, if not all, survivors experience. And so we'll go through that in the next few slides. So 94% of survivors have reported experiencing economic exploitation. 96% of survivors reported experiencing economic abuse. 95% reported experiencing economic restrictions, and 77% reported harm doers preventing or disrupting their ability to earn income. Next slide, please. 84% of survivors reported not having enough money to support themselves or their children, and seeing that as their biggest barrier to safety. And on average, survivors have only $452 to spend as they see fit. BIPOC survivors have only $407 to spend as they see fit, comparing that to $634 for white survivors. So we already see the difference there when it comes to white survivors in comparison to BIPOC survivors. And we'll go over that a little bit later as well. And 52%, at least 52% of survivors experience coerced or fraudulent debt. And just to make sure folks are on the same page of what coerced means, it's any time that folks are feeling pressured to have something done. Okay, next slide, please. And the lifetime cost of intimate partner violence include the cost of related health problems, including the cost of related health problems, lost productivity, as well as criminal justice costs, is $103,767 for women and $23,414 for men. And of course, when we're even looking at these numbers, we see that they're using women and men. So assuming that is cis women and cis men. So it's a whole population of folks that are also not included in this huge number. And that's also on average, not even thinking about how many folks are outside of that as well. But just a huge number for you all to be able to see. Next slide, please. And people who survived intimate partner violence incur an average of $52,242 in lost wages over a lifetime. So that previous slide, if we're just focusing on women, 104,000, and then on average, people that are surviving 52,242. Those numbers are also astonishing. to be able to see how much economic harm folks are experiencing, and how much can they really afford to heal if those are the numbers that they're experiencing. And it can be more, it can be less, but even still, what is preventing them financially from even being able to go through their healing journey when this is occurring? Next slide, please. And survivors report financial insecurity as the number one barrier to safety and healing. So the number one thing, financial insecurity, and we see that from the numbers. We see that from really all the work that we do at Free From, and all the you folks that are on this call, I'm sure, are on the webinar, you know as well how difficult it is, when you have that much debt, or when you have that much insecurity financially, to be able to be safe and to stay safe and to heal. Next slide, please. So looking at the cost of economic abuse even further, on average, survivors have reported that harm doers have stolen 1,280 from them each month, and that harm doers have restricted their freedom to spend an additional 1,090 of their own money as they see fit each month. So 1,280 on 1,090. For many people, that is the amount that they may pay in rent, maybe more, maybe less, but that's a huge amount of money each month. Next slide. And survivors incur $15,936 in coerced or fraudulent debt in their names each year. And they lose out on $23,076 of income every year. And they incur $17,770 in property damage costs every year. So I just want to leave that. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you go back one more time? Thank you. So just to think about those numbers and all the others that we've talked about as well. Okay, next slide, please. So then when we're thinking about intimate partner violence disproportionately impacting BIPOC and LGBTQIA plus folks, 41.2% of Black women experience IPV, 40% of lesbian women experience IPV, up to 60% of Native American women experience IPV, and 61% of bisexual women experience IPV. Huge numbers that are experiencing this and experiencing the economic abuse and the debt and the harm that comes along with all of that as well. Next slide, please. And then when we look at every dollar that white men earn in comparison to BIPOC and LGBTQIA plus folks. So for every dollar white men earn, Asian women earn only 90 cents. Black women earn only 62 cents. Native American women earn, intimate partner violence. My apologies, that wasn't defined. So IPV is intimate partner violence. And so for Native American women, they earn only 57 cents, and Latinx women earn only 54 cents. So for every dollar white men own, Black and Latinx women own only pennies, and Native American women own less than 1/10 of the median wealth of all Americans. So we wanted to make sure that we had this slide and this information as well, so folks can see the differences when it comes to folks of color, when it comes to LGBTQIA plus folks, when they're thinking through being a survivor and experiencing financial insecurity on that even higher level. And then when we couple these things with someone that's trans or someone that's queer as well, then that even creates even more of a gap in income security. Okay, next slide, please. So that was a lot. That was a lot of statistics. And I know that was a lot of reading on my part. So thank you all for bearing with me on that. But I know hearing those stats, they make me feel things. They make me feel angry. It makes me feel frustrated. But I want to check in with you all. How are you feeling about learning those stats? And where are you feeling it in your body? And you can feel free to respond to this check-in in your chat, or you can go ahead and just discuss it with yourself. But we wanted to make sure we gave space to that. So we have Darlene that says, As an Indigenous woman, I feel it in my head and my heart. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Helen is saying it's shocking, although the fact it is a global and societal problem, not just a personal problem, helps me feel less alone and less like it's anything I've done wrong to be in an abusive situation. Yes, yes. We know how isolating it is to be a survivor, and many times that's what harm doers use to their advantage, where you may feel like, okay, it's just me, other folks may not understand, or maybe they might even be tired of me discussing it, and so you kind of feel like it's just yourself. To see pennies listed, Kristen is saying, to see pennies listed makes me feel disappointed. Joanne felt it in their hearts. And Brianna said the statistics being so high for bisexual women was surprising and eye-opening. Yes. Letitia is saying that it's stressful and they need to stretch. Understand. Yes, listen to your body. If you're feeling anything, then go ahead and go with that. All right. Next slide, please, Sharon. And thank you all for sharing. So going with that need to stretch, we want to make sure that we give you all a little bit of a break. Sharon, is there a certain amount of time you want folks to take before they come back?
Maybe we can take 6 minutes and come back at 11:30 Pacific. So in 5 minutes, whatever that is in your time zone.
All right. See you all in 5 minutes.
All right, everybody. I'm gonna give everyone a couple more seconds to come back in, and then we'll get started. I know I definitely needed that break after those stats. Okay. If people are back, can you just type a Y in the chat? Just letting me know you're back. Great. All right. All right. So now that we've heard all of these stats about what economic abuse is and the stats that survivors experience and the effects of economic harm, we want to talk to you a little bit about protecting your money, right? So whether or not you are in an experience where you are currently experiencing harm and you're being subjected to harm, or maybe it's an experience that you've had before where you were subjected to harm, we want to make sure that you have the tools and the abilities to protect your money in ways that feel good to you. So making your money important to you. What does it allow you to do? Why have you joined our webinar today? So why is protecting your money important to you? Allows me to support the survivors I work with and help them safety plan financially. Yep. To access resources, more tools to give to people that you work with. A huge barrier for survivors. Want to learn how to get a credit score and become financially self-supporting. Thank you for sharing. Enables freedom of choice. Yeah, we see that a lot coming up, right, in the chat. Freedom of choice, being free, having options. Food, medical, transportation. Not wanting to be dependent on somebody. Yes, Marissa, money is power. So protecting their money is protecting their power. Thank you. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I want to really highlight this comment from Floripa where it said, while those who care for me had best intentions, so even with the best intentions, the trauma of it was still really hard. We live in a capitalistic society, so it helps to survive learning how to support yourself and living free-ish to live how you want. Yes, thank you for sharing, everybody. Okay, so now that we've established why protecting your money is important to you, I want to go through some things before we get into kind of like what we have suggestions about. I want everyone here to keep in mind that you know best how to protect your money, right? Free From is just one resource. We are just one field in this bigger society of survivors. And we, even though we are a team of survivors, even though I am a survivor, I don't know how to best protect your money. You know best how to protect your money. And the following information that we want to provide are just guidelines and suggestions. So, even as we go through all this, please remember that you are your best expert. We are just giving suggestions and guidelines on what we believe could be helpful for you, but you know best what is safe for you and you know best how to protect your money. So just keeping that in mind, that you are the expert, you have everything you already need, and these are just things that we hope are helpful to you in the process. So as many people in the chat have already said, protecting your money is just about having options, right? It's the option to do the things that you want to do, to move in the ways that you want to move, and to earn money or not earn money in the ways that you want. So there is no right or wrong intention or goal, and there is no right or wrong time to start protecting your money. So if you're kind of feeling like, oh, it's just too late for me, or maybe it's just too early, or maybe I'm not in the position where I need to be, just remember that there is no right or wrong time. This is just completely what makes you feel safe, and there is no right or wrong goal. So don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're not doing things right, because if it feels good for you and if it feels safe for you, then you're doing it the way that you need to do it in order to be safe and free. So keeping in mind that one, you are your own best expert, and two, that protecting your money is just about having the options. Okay. Anyone needs to repeat that to themselves. You are your own best expert. Okay, so before we get into kind of the nitty gritty of what protecting your money can look like, I would like everyone to set their intention if you're able to. So setting your intention just means, what are you planning for? Financially, what are you planning for? And you can share this in the chat if you want to, but if you don't want to, that's totally fine. If you don't want to share in the chat, I would suggest maybe you write it on a post-it, or maybe you write it somewhere else where it feels comfortable for you and it feels safe for you. So setting your intention is, what are you planning for? This can be to save for presents for your children. Maybe it's emergency gas money. Maybe it is to leave an abusive relationship. Maybe it's for an emergency fund. I see buying a home, most definitely. Earlier today, I spoke to someone who said they were saving to buy a puppy. And keeping in mind, there's no right or wrong answer. This is just what your intention is. So what are you setting your intention, and why do you want to protect your money? Emergency funds, most definitely. Personally, to save for emergency funds. Professionally, to help my clients. Learning how to make money, how to make good choices about what kind of jobs, how to manage money. Yeah, most definitely. Stop living paycheck to paycheck. I'm hoping some of the information here will be helpful for you in learning all of those things. Okay. So whatever your intention is, whether or not you shared it in the chat, just remember that this is your intention. It does not have to be what society would consider correct. So it's just what you think is right for you and what makes sense for you. Okay. It can be short-term or long-term intentions, or it can be both, right? It can be maybe long-term, something that you want to do in the next 5 years, but then it can, short-term goals and intentions are really helpful if you want to think about what you want to do in the next 3 months, or even the next 3 weeks, or even the next 3 days, right? Every day we set an intention for ourselves, and when we create intentions, they are things of putting ourselves first. Okay, so I want to go into a financial landscape first. So a financial landscape is just a resource to help you understand your financial life as it stands. This does not mean this is how it always will be, right? So just because your finances are not how you want them to be today, that doesn't mean in a year, in 2 years, in 6 months that it will be the same. So a financial landscape is a culmination of the things that you own that can be sold, money that you owe, and other financial areas of your life. And we'll go into this in the next slide. And I want to, before I jump into the next slide, I want to acknowledge that doing your financial landscape and looking at your financial landscape can be helpful, but it can also be really, really scary, right? So thinking about where your finances lie, it can be really scary. And a lot of people have different coping mechanisms. And if your coping mechanism is to avoid it or not do anything about it, that's okay, right? Because that's where you are in this moment. And that this is just an option that you have if you want to engage today. So a financial landscape at its bare minimum, and just kind of thinking about it in bones, is you just determine what you have, what you owe, and where people might be able to harm you. So let's go through this a little bit. Assets. Assets is just this like fancy term for just saying the things and the money that you have access to. So assets can be things like your cell phone, your laptop, it can be your car, it can be maybe jewelry that you own, it's your clothing, it's anything that you can sell or that you have access to. So that's what assets is, very generally. Debts are, generally just speaking, money that you owe. So this can be credit card debt, this can be student loans, this can be money that you owe a parent or a sibling or a friend. Maybe it's money that you owe other people, that kind of stuff. So we think about assets as things that you have, and then debts are things that you owe. And then the third part that can be really scary, and it's okay if you don't want to engage in this part, is your vulnerabilities. So thinking about where can someone be able to harm me financially? Just all the things that can go wrong, but just thinking really thoughtfully about where can I better protect myself so that I have more options. All right. So maybe a vulnerability is that somebody's name is on your credit card, right? Then they have access to spend their money. Or maybe that somebody has your physical credit card and they can spend it how they want. Maybe it's thinking about that you're paying for a car that your name is not on, right? So those are vulnerabilities. And again, I don't want this to be kind of like worst case scenario, but just thinking about where things are can be helpful in planning for where you want it to look like. And please keep in mind that your financial landscape, whatever it looks like today, does not mean it is what it's going to be in the next, 3, 6, 9 months or the 3, 6, 9 years. Okay. So let's also think about documents. So documents are really important in a society like ours where they want you to identify yourself and identify what you have. So a way that you can protect yourself thinking about documents is first to just identify who has access to your personal information. So this can be things like social security cards and numbers. This can be green cards, passports, driver's license, bank account information, financial information, like things that you don't want a stranger to have because they can take advantage of it. Also think intentionally about who has access to that information. And if you are in a position where you don't have access to your own information, something that you can do is either get new cards, put a hold on your credit report, or if you sometimes have access, sometimes you don't, you're not sure if you're always going to have access, you can take pictures of those documents and upload them in secure Dropbox or Google Drive accounts. So let's say you sometimes have seen it, but you're not, maybe your harm-doer prohibits you from seeing your driver's license sometimes because they don't want you to go to work, like Anna said. Or maybe it's that sometimes they'll take your social security card and they won't give it to you because they want to use it to open a new bank account or open a new credit card. Something that you can do for yourself is to take pictures and upload those. There we go. And then whenever possible, and if it is possible for you to do this in a safe way, try to choose the paperless option for your bank accounts, right? So that way, whatever you're spending on, your bank accounts or your credit cards, people who should not have access to your information do not have access. And also keep in mind that it may take a couple months before the paperless option goes into effect. So just because you click the paperless option in your app or online, that doesn't mean that the following month is going to happen. It may take a few months for them to process. So just keeping that in mind. And then identifying a safe mailing address, because a lot of our documents come mailed to our homes. And for some of us, and for many of us, home is not a safe place to receive documents. So think about who can be a safe mailing address, right? Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a family member. And thinking in mind, if there is no safe mailing address for you, you can check if your state or local governments has programs where they provide confidential address programs for survivors. Again, these are just options. You do not have to engage with them. And maybe it's not the right time, right? Maybe it's like, okay, this is just an option for a year later. Okay. Banking. So tell me in the chat, maybe with just a Y or a N for no, who's had problems with banking before? Maybe it's a bank not letting you do a paperless option. Maybe it's people who should not have access to your bank having access to your bank. Your bank. Oh, yeah. So I'm seeing one no, couple no's, more yeses. So banking is definitely an area where as a society we can do better to support survivors. But as survivors, there's things that we can do too, right? So first and foremost, just identify who has physical and online access to your bank accounts. So physical meaning that they can actually go to the bank and show, maybe they are on the account with you and they can show their ID, they can show the card, and they can access money. But online is a whole different story, right? Maybe they just have your username and your password and they're able to go into accounts and take money out or spend money how they want. So thinking about who has access to these, and this doesn't always have to be somebody who is a partner or who lives in your household, but this can be family members who don't live in your household. This can be neighbors, this can be friends. So identifying who has access to your account, and then determine if any money in any joint account is yours and what you want to do with that money. Some people will say, oh, it's your money, take half of it or take all of it. And that may not be safe for you, right? So determine what, if any, money is yours, and whatever you determine that you want to do with that money is totally okay. That's your choice. And there is no right answer there. Try to avoid using a debit or credit card that a harm-doer has access to. And I say that because sometimes there is no way to avoid that, right? But if you can avoid it, you want to think about, maybe is there a different option, because transactions are recorded. So a harm-doer may be using your purchases to track your movements, to think about where are you going, what are you doing. And a different way that you can avoid using debit cards or credit cards can be, you can use cash, you can use a prepaid debit card, or you can use a Visa gift card, right? So you upload money to a Visa gift card and then you're able to use that Visa gift card and not receive those transactions. Another thing that you can do is to explore online accounts. So online banks are typically banks that do not have a brick and mortar. So a brick and mortar means that if you're walking down the street, you're not going to see this bank because this bank only lives online. But if a bank is FDIC insured, which means the federal government insures the money that you have put into it, then that may be a good option for you. So online banks like Ally Bank, or VO Bank are banks that we recommend. And you can select the paperless option from the very beginning so that no bank statements are mailed to your address. So if you can, think about avoiding credit cards or debit cards that people have access to that you do not want them to have access to, and exploring online bank accounts. Okay, so let's think about assets a little bit. Whenever possible, save money in a way that no one else has access to. And for some people, this may be just in a bank account, right? You put money into a bank account, you transfer it, and that may be what is safe for you. But for other people, you can think about money that is in a safe place at home. If you want to hide your money and you don't feel like you can, that money is not safe, online, but it is safe in your room or in a safe space in your house, then that may be the thing that works for you. You can also give it to a trusted friend, and also keeping in mind that I can't remember who the participant was, but somebody said they had the best intentions and yet it was still stressful. So even with family and friends, even if you trust them and even if you believe that they have the best intentions, if somebody else has access and control over your money, that can also be a stressful situation for you. Okay. And then again, assets are just things that you own, things that you can sell, things that you can use. You can identify other valuables that are yours and determine what you want to do with it. So things that you can do, you can take it. If you choose to leave, you can leave them, you can sell them, you can use them, whatever it is, just identify the things that are valuable. And the reason we do this exercise is because there may be things that are valuable that you may not be immediately seeing the value in. So maybe you have a kitchen appliance that you can sell. Maybe you have a car part that you no longer need, like a stereo. Maybe you have books that would be of access for other people, that kinds of stuff. So thinking about your car, jewelry, laptop, pictures, cell phone, those kinds of things. Okay. And then I see a question from Kristen. Can you withdraw from these banks from any ATM machine? I believe you're talking about Ally and VO. And the thing with online banks is you can't use the for most of them, you can't use an ATM with it. But what you can do is you can use it as like a debit card. So it's not like cash specific, but you can use it like you would use any other debit card or credit card that accepts like a Visa card, for example. Okay. And then something to keep in mind is if you are in a situation where your harm-doer has access to your physical checkbooks or debit cards and credit cards, you can take them, hide them, or destroy them. And Floripa said, for Ally, they use all point ATMs, which can be found in many gas stations and drugstores. So point ATM, all point ATMs for Ally, thank you. And then if you are a business owner where you have, maybe you're running a business out of your home, maybe you're running your business out of your room, think about what you need to continue running your business. So for people who sell cars on Etsy, for example, maybe they need to take their scissors and their paper, maybe they have a Cricut machine. So thinking about the things that you need in order to keep earning income. And then taking, hiding, or destroying physical checkbooks, debit or credit cards that people can access. Okay, so credit, let's talk about credit a little bit. So credit is basically this number that 3 big credit bureaus give people who, and they say this is your trustworthiness to pay money back. And I'm using trustworthiness for people who can't see me in quotation marks because that is what society says and this is what their formula says, but that is not true. Credit is just a culmination of the things that have happened to you or that the things that you have experienced or been subjected to throughout the lifetime of your credit score. So if you have a credit score that is lower than what you want it to be, that's okay. Credit changes, credit fluctuates, and there is no shame or blame to be placed on what your credit score is, right? Your credit score is not a reflection of who you are or how responsible you are. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there. Okay, so credit is important because it helps us purchase a home or purchase a car, right? It thinks about what you can do in terms of the ways that you can participate in our financial institutions as they currently exist. So one thing that you can do that is a really quick, not a quick, it's a relatively easily accessible exercise is to check your credit report for free through annual credit report. So what you can see when you check your credit report is you'll be able to see all of your open and closed accounts. You'll be able to see if you have accounts that maybe you didn't authorize, right? Maybe it's not yours. Maybe it's somebody who opened the account under your social security number. So it's really important if you are able to check your credit report and to see what are the accounts out there and what are these companies saying that I have to pay back. And then another thing that you can do is cancel any credit cards that someone has access to that you have not authorized. Again, this may not be safe for you personally. So always thinking about determining, is this safe for me? Is this going to make me feel more safe or is it going to make me feel less safe to cancel a credit card that somebody might be using? Okay. And then I want to mention, I believe Helen said that thinking about how do you build a credit score, and a secure credit card is a really good way to do that. So a secure credit card kind of acts like in the way of a debit card where you have to put money in the beginning of that card, right? When you open that card, you put money into the beginning and maybe it's $200, maybe it's $50, maybe it's $100, and you can only spend what you have put in, but it's revolving, right? So if you, let's say you put in $200 at the beginning and you spend it like a credit card and you buy $100 worth of food, for example, for groceries, then at the end of the month, you pay that $100 back because it acts like a credit card and you still have the $200 to be able to use. If you have any more questions about a secure credit card, let me know or put it in the chat, or put it in the Q&A and we will be able to explain those things. Okay. If needed, you can keep a credit card open only in your name in case of an emergency, right? Sometimes things happen in our lives and we need money quickly. And if that's the case, having a credit card open can be helpful because you can spend, you can open that card, you can spend the money that you really need to live or survive, whatever it is for you. And then at least you have that line of access of credit open. Another thing that you can do with credit is identify which debts are yours and which were coerced or fraudulent. So again, like Em explained, when we talk about debt that's coerced, is that thinking about debt that you didn't want to do, but you said yes to anyways because you felt pressured. And then debts that are fraudulent are just things that you did not pay, you did not authorize, that kinds of things. And then debts that are yours may be things like, you know, if you use your credit card to buy something that was specifically for you. And what you can do is we have a compensation compass that can determine if you are eligible to recover some of the money that to recuperate the harm that you were subjected to. So if you were subjected to a lot of legal fees or medical bills or that kind of stuff, then you can visit the compass. The compass is a really good tool for you to see. You can choose some options depending on what state you live in, and it'll give you a list of options of, in your state, based on your experiences and based on what you are willing to do, here are the options for you. And then if you can drop the link to the compensation compass, if you can find it, that'd be great. Okay. Check your credit score, right? This is gonna help you determine what options you have for loans, credit cards, apartments, and you can do this for free on websites like Credit Karma or Mint. Helen, I feel hesitant to tell you what a number is a quote unquote good number to aspire to. I typically, people will say, you know, the number that you have as your credit score is the number that will determine what kind of loans you are eligible for, what kind of interest rates you'll get on loans and credit cards, whether landlords. There's something that we talk about at Freefrom is there is no such thing as a good credit score or a low or a bad credit score, right? It's not good or bad. We don't put those judgments on it. It just is what it is. And we want to first think about what is the goal that you have for your credit score. If your credit score is to get a loan at this percentage, then that's the credit, or if your goal is to get a loan at this percentage, specific percentage, whatever it is, then that's the credit score that you want, right? So we don't do good or bad judgments on credit scores because they're just, it just is what it is at this point. And it's always understanding that you have the power to, you know, raise your credit score if you, if that is what you're looking to do. Okay, online. So we hear a lot about cyber stalking, people committing harm online, people committing harm through government banks, online, that kind of stuff. So something that you can do is create a new email address that only you have access to. Right? So creating an email that only you have access to, that only you have the password to, and Proton Mail is encrypted and it can add an extra layer of security for you. So Proton Mail is a great place where you can find more secure email addresses, but even the typical ones, the way that they've set up their security system can be exploited. So it's good to think about what works for you and what is safe for you. And then again, this is if it is safe for you to change your passwords to your online accounts. So these are things, passwords to bank accounts, utility and phone accounts, your credit cards, and then an account to that. That may be one. If you shop at Target or Walmart, whatever it is that you're shopping at, it may be, if it is safe for you, a good idea to change your passwords on those accounts. Okay. And then keeping in mind that some banks and credit unions will send an email or text message every time a purchase is made, right? So this can be helpful if your phone number is the one associated so that you can see who is spending money on your account if it's not you. But it can be harmful if your harm-doer's phone number or email is associated with that account and they are seeing every time that you are, you know, swiping your card. So thinking about one, what is your situation and what is safe for you? All right, we just jumped through a lot of questions and a lot of information. So I want to again reiterate that you are your best expert here. And thinking about, you want to go back to your why. Why is protecting your money important to you? And what is going to be safe for you? And I want to again reiterate that you want to keep in mind that not everything we shared is going to be applicable or safe for you. And we don't assume that everything that we shared is something that you should do. So only do what is safe for you, and you can keep this information for later. We'll send this PowerPoint out for maybe when something else can become applicable and become safe for you in the future. Okay. So I would love to hear from you in the chat, because I know there's a lot of expertise and knowledge in this room. What other tools or support would be helpful for you to keep your money safe? And I want you all to think big, think in abundance. In your ideal world, what are the tools and support that would be helpful for you to keep your money safe? Easy access to affordable housing, most definitely. An all-state curriculum, and Caroline shared the link in the chat for everyone. To have my own income and a trusted financial advisor to invest, definitely. Paid leave for those who experience DV or sexual assault to recover and stabilize their situation. Yes. So, Flori, but I want to say that we have a gender-based violence policy leave that we are happy to share with everyone. At Free From, that looks like 2 weeks after harm has been done. So would love to share that with anyone who is interested. Avoid scam calls. You can sign for Do Not Call registry. Thank you, Kristen. How to protect our assets when divorcing from harm-doers. Yes. Yeah, so keeping in mind that one, there's a lot of information in this room. So if you have a question, please ask it. Maybe, M or I can share, but there's a lot of information in this chat that maybe we don't have. So please keep asking and answering each other's questions there. Okay, I'm gonna hand it over to M to get us continue.
All right. Thank you so much, Sharon. So we've talked a lot about protecting your money, defining economic abuse, and different statistics. And now I want to go ahead and turn it over to healing economic trauma. So healing economic trauma looks different for every single person. It's not a one size fits all guide that we can all have and utilize. And really, people come to healing their economic trauma on their own time. And it starts with exploring your relationship to money and your own money story. So to really get to the root of where did the trauma begin? How did I grow up thinking about savings? How did I grow up thinking about credit and debt? And what contributed to my feelings about it right now? What contributed to my feelings about it when I was, a young person? And so when you're able to explore that and figure out where you are and where you want to go, that can really help to aid you in working towards healing your economic trauma. And you can also create a plan to begin your own healing journey. And with that healing journey and with that plan, it can include working with a therapist. It can be cultural, spiritual practices, journaling, art, books, etc. Honestly, it's whatever feels good for you. Because as I said, it's not a one size fits all guide. It can be that you are in a certain place in your healing journey where you don't really want to interact with anyone else. You just want to be in your own head with your own thoughts. And you don't necessarily want to be in a group setting or be even in any type of spiritual setting, if that's something that you are into, or reading a book. But it's really about listening to yourself and listening to your own needs. Next slide, please. And thinking about celebrating your successes when you have those wins, being proud of yourself, saying, telling yourself you did a good job, and being kind and patient throughout the process. So when it may be times that you perhaps didn't go in the direction that you had hoped, or things just didn't work out in the way that you had hoped, just making sure that you're being gentle with yourself and you're not being so hard on yourself for that outcome. Reminding yourself of your intentions, as thinking through the intentions that you went through with Sharon earlier, and reminding yourself that you are your own best expert. Even though we come from Freeform with this expertise, you have so much knowledge, you have so much power within yourself. You are your own best resource, and we love to be able to learn and hear from you. And so to end that, you have the knowledge, power, and ability to control your own money. Things have happened. As Sharon shared, Sharon's a survivor. I'm a survivor as well. But one thing that we have in common is that we are very gentle with ourselves, and we allow ourselves to know it's okay. And we're going up from here. And it's okay if we have down moments as well, but it's going to be okay. And we know that we will succeed in what feels like success to us. All right, next slide, please. So what are your last thoughts, feelings, images, questions, or actions you're thinking of as we come to a close? So again, your last thoughts, feelings, images, questions, or actions you're thinking of as we come to a close. And you can feel free to share that in the chat. You can feel free to speak to yourself about that. But no pressure to share, but we wanted to provide that space. Okay, Hannah, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Over and over, I've heard a theme today of grace, giving grace to ourselves. Yes, yes. And you deserve that grace. Brianna is saying, I definitely have some more resources to give to survivors. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Yes. Kelly is saying, is it possible for us to access the PowerPoint? Yes, so we will be providing slides and the webinar, or the recording of the webinar as well. Samantha is saying, having an idea of how to talk to survivors about how to assess their finances has been so helpful. It also reminded me of my history with finances and to continue celebrating the small victories. Be gentle. Yes. Bank On. Sharon, I don't know if you know about Bank On, but I'm not as familiar with it. Claudia is asking about that. Sharon, if you want to respond via chat. Floripa, I hope I'm pronouncing that. I love the honesty around the safety, around the suggestions provided. Oh, great to hear. All right. So happy to hear that you all have gained so much. And honestly, we gained so much from you and you participating in this webinar with all of the chats, the polls. We really appreciate being able to have folks that we can be in community with. Yes, there is a mailing list. Sharon, can you drop in the chat our mailing list if for folks to be able to attend more webinars and to also learn about the work that we have, the things that exciting news that we have coming out, and we're also available on social media. We'll have that at the end as well if you all want to follow us. Sharon, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So if anyone is interested, one of the programs that I lead is our survivor-led peer-to-peer financial support groups. And what those groups are is they're all virtual at the current moment. And it's a way for survivors to come together to work towards financial freedom, to build community, and to reduce isolation. And they do that in a support group. So in a group setting of 2 to 8 other survivors, we provide them with a guidebook We also provide them with a starter pack to get them going within the groups, and folks can create their own groups of 2 to 8 survivors in their own community, whatever community means to you. And also folks can join groups if we have one in their area. If not, many times we have folks that'll join a multi-state group. So those groups are nationwide. And what survivors really love that I have heard and they shared with me about the groups is really being able to be in a space where other survivors just get it. They don't have to explain, this is why my credit is the way it is, or this is why I have financial trauma, or this is a trigger to me, or I'm dealing with this in this litigation abuse, or all of these different things. They're just with other survivors that can say, I empathize with you, I understand. And so if you are interested in being a part of those groups, it's free to join. We also provide the virtual meeting spaces, but again, we provide you with the starter packs, with the guidebook, so you're able to have activities, optional group discussions, and optional agendas, sample agendas, in a way just to really be able to connect with other survivors, build community and collective power. So my email address is there, and I believe we'll have it at the end as well. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sharon. And again, if you have any questions about that or just anything else, feel free to send me an email. Okay, Sharon, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so Em talked about peer-to-peer, which is an amazing resource for survivors looking for community. And for service providers, we have a couple different options. The first one is to become a member of our listserv. And in this listserv, it's connecting with other service providers working in the GBV movement. And we're thinking all about advocating for living wages and healthy work conditions in the anti-violence movement. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can definitely check it out. And you can also sign up for our service provider newsletter, which is a monthly newsletter on information, tips, resources on doing financial security work with survivors. And that comes out monthly. And it's, it has information about our webinars. It has information about safety planning, about, important documents. And you can sign up for our upcoming Q&A with Free From and Peers. And this is kind of our service provider version of a miniature peer-to-peer where people meet monthly. We talk about a topic every month, and it's really learning from one another. Like we said, and like Em iterated, Free From is not the only expert in this room. There's a lot of expertise just in the chat, in the people, in the knowledge and experiences of the people in this room. So Q&A with Free From and Peers is really honoring that and really thinking about what are the things that people want to learn about that maybe Free From just we're not experts are, or maybe we just are not the best people to share about that. So giving power and knowledge and acknowledging that it exists in the service providers who are already working in the movement. So you can sign up with that link. And if you're curious, we'll send it out in the follow-up email as well that has this recording as well as this PowerPoint if you would like that. Okay. And at this time, we do want to take time for questions. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat or in the Q&A. If you want to ask questions separately, that's okay too. Helen said, how do I get the PowerPoint and sign up? So we will send the PowerPoint to you. So we received your email address when you signed up for the workshop. So what we will do is we're going to send you the recording. We'll send you the PowerPoint. And M's email, my email, and to sign up for the listservs as well in an email that will go out to you tomorrow. And if you want to sign up for Free From's newsletter, you can do that on our website. So if you go to www.freefrom.org, you just scroll to the very, very, very bottom, like to the end of the page, and it'll say join our mailing list. Okay, any other questions for myself or for M? Okay, seeing no questions right now, I'm going to hand it over to Em again to close us out in our grounding.
Thanks so much, Sharon. All right, I would like to invite you all again to a grounding exercise to close us out. So if you would accept that invitation, I ask that you honor the feelings, thoughts, memories, and ideas that came up in this training. write them down, draw them out, sit with them, make a to-do list, give them space in whatever way is meaningful to you. And as someone said in the chat, give yourself grace as well. Take a couple deep breaths, drink water, and or grab a snack and think through your last thoughts. Thank you so much for accepting that invitation. And as a reminder, just always remember to be gentle with yourself. Next slide, please. Thank you all so much for giving us your most valuable resource, your time. We really appreciate you all joining us. As Sharon had mentioned, you will receive an email tomorrow with the webinar and also the slides as well as the recording. So you'll have all the information to continue to stay connected with us. We hope to continue to stay in community with you and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend. Thank you.